I mean, this kind of state of policy embattlement or stagnation, how does it inform business and investment decisions that you make?
So Heidi, we're at a really interesting point, and I feel we're at an inflection point. The Energy Security Board here in Australia is doing a fantastic job getting us ready to have the Council of Australian Governments meet in August, hopefully to all get behind the new National Energy Guarantee. And this is important because it's going to give the policy framework, the stability for private enterprise to make the big investments that are needed going forward.
And also to have foreign investors take a better look and a more coherent look at what's going on as well, right?
Absolutely. EnergyAustralia is really lucky. We're owned by CLP. I know China Light and Power is well known to you. It's such a great shareholder because they take a long-term view. And in a sector like energy, you need investors who are willing to take long-term views.
What do you see as being the role of coal over the next 10 years, 20, 30 years? Because there's been quite a bit of disruption in the sense of the ripple-on effects of abrupt closures of plants and how that's played out.
So plants will close. So there are very few plants around the world that have even operated for the full 50 years, let alone extended beyond their technical 50-year life. And we think it's the right thing to give lots of notice when those big baseload plants are going to close, because then the market can compete to fill that gap at the lowest possible cost.
How, we were talking about the kind of state of government policy and how that's played into the entire debate. Do you feel like the government might have overreached with their approach in this debate?
I think an interesting thing for Australians to ask is, why is energy policy so politicised in this country? You look at other countries that you follow and the ideology can be quite different, yet the political parties are able to solve for energy policy, and that's what we need here.
The shift towards renewables, what are the implications for investors at this point? And consumers?
Well, it's an opportunity. So we absolutely want to lead and accelerate the clean energy transformation. We want that to be affordable for all Australians, no matter where they live, no matter what they earn. So the real opportunity going forward for investors is around the integration of renewables into this new energy system, and the only missing piece of the puzzle is this stable energy policy.
The National Energy Guarantee has been perceived as something of an attack on clean energy. Do you think that's fair?
I don't see it that way. I see the National Energy Guarantee as a real opportunity to get the stable policy settings right. And then I think there will be multiple investment opportunities which should be market tested so that we really get affordability at the front of the agenda.
What about emissions targeting, emissions cutting? It looks, the way that the agreement is structured, it looks like electricity does kind of the lion's share of that.
Well, I think one of the elegant things that the Energy Security Board has done in the framing of the National Energy Guarantee is link it explicitly to Australia's Paris commitments. So they're commitments that we've already made. So that's a good thing. There's a lot of internal consistency in taking that approach.
Is Australia doing enough for emissions reduction?
Australia needs to absolutely do its share. I think where the conversation needs to shift in Australia is to all sectors. We speak a lot in Australia about emissions intensity and what the electricity sector is doing, and we should. That's a good thing to have that conversation. I think we need to increase the amount of conversation that goes on around what the abatement opportunities are outside the electricity sector.
You are investing pretty heavily into renewables as well as gas. How do you see the competitive relationship between coal and clean energy? And is that really kind of starting to catch up a lot more?
So I don't see it as a competition. So I think that coal will continue to have a role. I've said before, I don't see new coal-fired power generation being built in Australia. I see the opportunities more around storage, batteries, around the integration of the new energy with the existing coal-fired generation, and getting really good at integrating all that and focusing much more on the demand side. So often the conversations around energy default just to what's happening on the supply side. And we should be having a lot more conversations around what's happening on the demand side, both big demand and also the behaviour of mums and dads and families in their homes.
Does that change when pricing catches up?
So I'm not sure what you mean by when pricing catches up. I think it's true that right now all customers are concerned about the cost of energy. And at Energy Australia, we talk to our customers about using less of our core products. Sometimes they're quite surprised when we open the conversation with them that we would like them to use less gas, less electricity, and stay with us longer.
The political uncertainties that I think constantly swirl around Australia's government and the potential for an opposition party to perhaps be in government after the next election, does that change or does that add a great deal of uncertainty in terms of how you conduct your internal policy and investment decisions?
I think what all investors in this sector seek is bipartisan policy. And I mentioned earlier how disproportionate the politicisation of the sector seems to be in Australia, because other countries can solve for energy policy. And we want more investment in this sector. So I encourage all politicians to take the politics out of energy policy.